Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. This is the third in our series of DRS-related webinars. We're going to have a good time now talking about DRS03, which is a quite complicated and quite subtle topic at the moment. So we'll be happy to have our regular guests and we also are very happy to have on our board always Philippe Gabouillet from the Commission, who will answer the questions at the end. As you probably aware, because some of you have already attended previous webinars, you will have the possibility of asking questions because there's a dedicated pane on the panel of the GoToWebinar application that allows you to ask questions. All the questions will be collected during the talk as we speak, and at the end, your questions will be asked to the speakers as well as the Commission for an immediate answer at the end of the webinar. Armand Lachef will be collecting the questions, and thank him for that. We will have on this session a very short introduction to the topic, and I think some clarifications will be brought after that by the Commission. And we will also have a speak by two eminent and talented speakers. We will have David Lunt from PSC, Public Safety Communication Europe, which will be presented if you don't know it already. He's the president and the project coordinator of the Broadway project. And Marie-Christine Bonamour, also secretary of PSC and workshop agreement coordinator and ACSEN and INS ESG auditor. I'm myself Argero Canet from the French Ministry of Higher Education and Research. And I'll be hosting this webinar from now on. So we begin with a very short introduction. If you have attended the webinars already, you're aware of that, but just small reminders about the DRS calls. The DRS calls is an overarching call that spans from 2018 to 2020 about disaster resilient societies and exposition to disasters, whether natural or man-made. And the overall objective of DRS topics is to consider one or more disasters from climate-related weather events, earthquakes, volcanic events, space weather, industrial, crime, terrorists, and then develop advanced innovation. So there have been 5 topics on DRS. The first one has been addressed yesterday on the webinar about human factors, technology for first responders. The second one has been addressed this morning. And now we're talking about the third one, pre-normative demonstration for disaster resilient society. DRS4, which is dedicated to CBRN, will be handled elsewhere and has been presented already at several events. And DRS05 is over, it's now closed. So, as a general matters, and this is something that has already been said this morning and yesterday, Horizon 2020 Secure Societies call follows a mission-oriented approaches, builds multidisciplinary projects, takes more into account the societal dimension, including respect to privacy and civil liberties, and strengthen the involvement of the end users in project definitions and execution. And of course, reinforces the role of member states' authority. Concerning DRS03 in particular, it's an innovation action, 6 million euros per project, one project financed. Output URL from 6 to 7, and still the same eligibility condition. This is really important, and you're well aware of that, I'm sure. At least 3 first responders, organizations or agencies from at least 3 different EU or associated countries. And deadline end of August. At this moment, absolutely no information on a possible reschedule. I say that because we are asked a lot about that, but at the moment there's absolutely no indication of such change. So the challenge of the topic in general, that you see, DR3 has been specialized in 3 subtopics, 1 for each year. Reason for the difficult interaction among practitioners, low-level interoperability of equipment procedures, lies in there being insufficient harmonization and standardization. So it is about pre-normative research, and in particular the subtopic 3, which is the one that is open in 2020, cites in its title that it's about first aid vehicle deployment, training and maintenance. But as you see, if you look at the topic, it looks like it's more about communication data exchange and pre-normative standardization in the procedures. This is the reason why we found interest in inviting PSCE, talking about the topic and discussing their own experience about this topic, because they are the reference organization association about communication data exchange. So the main impact that is aimed for the topic is standards for an effective deployment of resources to respond to major crises. So we're still about pre-standard operative procedures and also communication data exchange, and the title mentions first aid vehicle deployment. To know a little more about that, I'm sure the enlightenment of the Commission will be of use. So I have the last slide here, but of course it is not the last one. I will now give the floor to Marie-Christine Bonamour, who will take the floor and present PSCE alongside with David to give us more information. And I give the floor now.
Yes, thank you very much, Jero, and thank you to CERAIN for having invited us. We have a nice picture now. We'll wait, yes, just to have the slides starting on. Next one, please. Yes. So DRS03 asks for and insist on the need of improved standards on common communication data exchange mechanism that are required for an effective deployment of resources during the roundup to a major crisis related to any kind of disaster. Next one, David. No, yes. So the discussion of today will organize our presentation about trying to define what is interoperability, because it could be, as you will see, a lot of definition. It's complicated. We will present you also some research projects that have been carried out with the aim of improving interoperability, and as well as a standardization activity that have been launched in the frame of some research projects. So today, Jérôme mentioned already that we will be our 2 speakers. I am the Secretary General of PSCE. I will do the start of the presentation, and then David will continue the presentation. David is our president and is also the coordinator of Broadway. So next one. Yes, so a short introduction about Public Safety Communication Europe. We are an association. We have the form of an association. We are a forum that is constituted around 3 communities. One is public safety and user public safety practitioners, both working at strategical, tactical, or operational level on communication, so public safety communication system. We've got another community composed of industrial players who are providing solutions, device, infrastructures, services, and then researchers as well. And the aim is really to have a constant dialogue between the 3 communities to identify what are the problems what are the limitations in the solutions that exist, how this could be enhanced and solved. The dialogue also between researcher and industry is also important. Researcher would want also to test if what they see as ideas are valid for the practitioner, and they want this discussion as well with industry. So we try to trigger that in a permanent and constant dialogue between our three communities. The next one, David. So what is interoperability? When we're discussing about the topic, we say, well, maybe we should go and look what is available as a definition. And there is one which looks very technical and is limited in a way. So there is one definition that says that interoperability is a characteristic of a product or a system whose interfaces are completely understood to work with other products or systems at present or in the future in either implementation or access without any restrictions. So that's really a purely technical approach. If you go to the next one. So why interoperability is so important? Because interoperability is here to facilitate the possibilities to act together coherently, effectively, and efficiently. You can think of different examples of that. One could be quite obvious. It's the pooling, sharing of equipment. It's also to have different forces working together, how they should interact with each other. And then now, as I said, interoperability is not purely technical. There are other dimensions of interoperability. So if we move to the next slide, you will see the interoperability slack that has been defined by NATO, and that presents the different layers on the different components of interoperability. And then it's open up a lot of more possibility to bring and to raise this, reach this interoperability. I will now give the floor to David, who will guide us through these different layers and present you also and give illustration of these layers with some EU-funded projects. David, the floor is yours. I'm shutting my, yeah.
Thank you very much, Christine. So, as you heard, interoperability means many different things, and this particular diagram has become quite useful to us and important to us in recent times through a number of different projects, because it provides this common view, a common view on interoperability, an interoperable view on interoperability. It's an interesting layer stack, and primarily it's come from, on the right-hand side, you see that the stack has been defined by NATO Research Task Group there. On the left-hand side was an extrapolation of those layers into a little bit more detail, taking part with the EasyNet project quite a number of years ago. And so we've taken this forward in many ways, actually, to understand which layers of interoperability we're talking about, because different actors in different places, you know, the technical people, the operational people, the political people, they're all talking similar language, but in different contexts. So actually understanding interoperability in the right layer and in the right context is very important. So to explain how this works, if you look on the right-hand side, so you have physical interoperability at the bottom. We're going to start from the bottom right, work up to the top, and then go to the left. So at the bottom, physical interoperability. This is a physical exchange of information. Think of a postman and his bag of post. He's carrying the post between the houses. The syntactical interoperability. How big is the envelope? What color is it? Where do you put the address? Where do you put the stamp? Semantic interoperability. So the contents of a letter inside. What language is it written in? Is it written in a human language, a national language? Is it written in an operational language? What do the words mean? This all contributes to the knowledge and awareness. So the words written in that letter, they mean something to somebody in their context. As we go up, we look at the the pragmatic interoperability. So in this case, it's the need for that postal service. And that postal service is there about the social and cultural interoperability. You know, a postal service works differently in each different country. Postcodes on your letters are different in each different country. You know, so there's a number of you know, examples we can take from traditional old communication techniques like snail mail. We go over to the left of the diagram now, and we work from the bottom again. Physical interoperability. If we think about a modern day communication technology like a mobile phone, for instance, on the bottom level, physical interoperability, it's the radio waves. It's how your mobile phone connects to the base station. It's how any push-to-talk radio may talk to a colleague's radio. Protocol interoperability, it's that exchange of how does the RF waves carry that information? What is it packaged in? What is controlling that communication? A layer above, data object model interoperability. There's some standards for this. So if you're sending a text message from one unit to another unit, what format is it carried in? What's the object format that it's carried in? There are some standards there. Common alerting protocol, for instance, EDXL, emergency data exchange language. Then we come to the information interoperability. Again, we're in the semantic interoperability layer. What do we mean? Ontologies. What languages are we using? Are they technical languages? Are they human languages? Are they operational languages? And how do we actually represent that data exchange? And then I'm going to go right to the top on the left now and come down. Political objectives. European Union, national governments. How do they define their harmonized strategy and doctrine? Do they have a harmonized strategy and doctrine within their country? Yeah. What about pan-European? What about country to country at an EU level? And then we try to understand the operations. Okay, so if you're thinking about disaster resilience and crisis management, what are those aligned operations? How do responders work with each other in those responses? How do the different responders from different countries work with each other? How do they deal with that interoperability of the language and the semantic layer? And procedures, of course, which are a more detailed elaboration of those. But fundamentally, it's about information exchange, it's about knowledge, it's about awareness. And having that common knowledge and common awareness throughout the middle of this diagram. So please make sure when you're talking about interoperability that you know which layer you're in. It's very important. So as we go forward, change slides. I'm going to explain a number of the projects we've been involved in and how they've worked with these different layers. So if we look at the Concord project, this project was about medical emergency. It's about response to medical emergency. It's about improving the technical tools they have for information exchange. So in one side, they had triage tools. They had heart rate monitors on the patients. They had a tablet device where they can mark up on the body where there was pain or where there was some injury. And we had drones flying in the sky, looking over the scene of the incident and so on. And all of this is generating information, that knowledge that's important for decision making. There's a decision support tool involved in this project. And this information all comes towards this common operational picture, this kind of control room. In this case, it's not in a fixed building somewhere in a government site. It's actually in the back of a truck, a common operational picture in the back of a truck, which actually can be seen by many of the different responders in the command chain around, actually on the field. So it's about bringing that information in a interoperable form into one single place in a way that the responders can understand it, the control rooms can understand it, and those responders and control room people, they may even be from different countries. So this is and even different disciplines. So this is very important. This project had some great results. Didn't really go towards the standards, but it had a very good operational development there. In PSCE, we took part in the evaluation of the technology, actually putting it into a small trial, small exercise, and actually working with the technology and evaluating the feedback from the practitioners involved. A very challenging job. But you can see there, we're only fitting within 3 of those layers in the middle there. We don't really take care of the technology at the bottom, the radio technology. It was all based on Wi-Fi and 4G, but that was off-the-shelf equipment. There's no development there. And again, above, the aligned procedures, aligned operations. We needed some of that just for the exercise, just for the trial, but that's not something that was taken forward beyond the project. In the EPISEC project, this is about a common information space. There's a recognition here that different control room tools used different technologies to interoperate, to actually exchange information. So some were using CAPS, some were using something else. And what we said here is we'll have a common information space. So as data is passed from one system to another system, it's translated in terms of its syntactical format, its data object model. So we're working down the bottom again in the syntactic interoperability. The most interesting part of this project, in my eyes, was actually the semantic interoperability. There's some development here of ontologies and matching of different terms. And the example I like to use here is actually in English. In the UK, we call a dustbin a dustbin. Yeah. In the US, they call it a trash can. It's the same thing, but just different words used. Different responder organizations will use different terminologies for the same thing. Different responder organizations in different countries will use different terminologies, even in different, national languages. So this semantic interoperability was pretty important development within that. There is a paper on the PSC website written by the University of Split who did this work, and it's really good work. The next project I would like to explain is the driver project. This animal was a huge project, which took in a lot of the activities from these existing projects, earlier projects, but actually worked on a broader set of layers of the interoperability stack. So at the bottom there, we covered the, again, data object model interoperability, but with a common information space. But the main reason was for the trial. The main goal of Driver was about trialing allowing practitioners to trial new technologies, improve their capability in response. Trialing those new technologies is quite a difficult thing to plan for. How do you actually say this is good and I'm going to buy it? Was it based on how good their marketing material was, or is it something you put in place in a realistic situation and try it out? And this is what Driver did. And Driver, on the top there, Harmonized Strategy Doctrine, developed what we call the trial guidance methodology. And this is how to evaluate the new technologies, the new tools. And they're both technological and non-technological tools there. So new capabilities being developed. Going down, again, the information exchange and so on, as I said, the data object interoperability common information space was there as part of the test bed, because you're trialing a tool, you put them in an information exchange environment, and there's a technological way of exchanging information there. Even if that tool didn't have the same interoperability as another tool it was working with. So there's an interoperability layer technically built in to there. So about capability building, really, in Driver. And the next project I will come to is our own Broadway project, the one we have the pleasure to coordinate. And what Broadway does is it takes outcomes of those lower TRL projects and produces a TRL 8 outcome. Broadway is a pre-commercial procurement project, quite a large scale. And you can see we're sitting at the interoperability levels there at political objectives. So actually, the reason why is that our partners there, they're buyers. This is a procurement project, procurement. There are 11 governments, essentially. So they're either the Ministries of Interior or their delegated agency responsible for mobile communication for public safety in their country. And they represent 1.4 million responders in Europe. So they're quite an important group of people. So we're sitting at the political layer there as well. But in the actual process, the pre-commercial procurement, we're actually procuring this all at the bottom, this big bubble at the bottom. So the radio technology, the information exchange capabilities, and some of the procedures are in there. And we're then evaluated by, we're actually using the trial guidance methodology. We're going to be evaluated by practitioners, so those who are aware of their practitioner strategy and doctrine, and evaluating the technology being procured on that base, through the Broadway program, with respect to their own operational need. So this is quite a key project and a consumer thereof the previous project that we explained. Now, how do standards fit into all of this? This is very important, especially for Broadway, because standards set a baseline, a solid baseline for procurement. They also there, if vendors are selling standardized interface, equipment or software with standardized interfaces, then we minimize a vendor lock situation also. So standards are key. So how do we go from research to standards? So you can see on the diagram now that we have the Concord EPISEC driver projects, and through the driver project we took some of the concepts towards CEN, and we carried out 2 CEN workshop agreements. There's a third one as well, which is on the terminologies. So the trial guidance methodology, by the way, these workshop agreements were actually published on the 6th of May. However, they're not yet on the CEN website, which is quite frustrating, but they are published. Trial guidance methodology is about the methodology of how to evaluate new technologies. At the bottom there, we take forward the requirements for semantic and syntactic interoperability for crisis and disaster management also. And at the top, again, we're ordered by according to the layer diagram. Societal impact assessment. There's some excellent work done on, well, what is the impact on society with this piece of technology? So we take 3 key elements through the driver project into pre-standardization. So CEN workshop agreement is actually a pre-standardization activity. So we go from research to standards. We then go from standards to capability. So capability for responders, improved capability for disaster resilience. So again, on the left, within the Broadway program, within the procurement documents, we cited directly the guidance methodology. So our practitioner evaluation team in Broadway will evaluate Broadway solutions using the TGM. And also we talk about the semantic and syntactic interoperability also. 3GPP is the standardization body for mobile. So the mobile phone that you have in your pocket was standardized in 3GPP. 5G, of course, is the next one, and this is what's going to be a part of Broadway. And so Broadway takes on these standards, which have come from this prior research activity, and we embed that within the procurement, the joint procurement of these 11 countries. So I think it's very key to see the actual research to the standards, to the procurement. This is a key factor, and really making sure you're in the right levels of those interoperability diagrams. So what happens with Broadway? If you don't know about Broadway, this is the main picture. Interoperability at all layers, essentially all layers. What Broadway will do is we'll give mobile communication in every European country to act as one, so that responders can be operationally mobile anywhere in Europe. They can communicate with responders in a different country, maybe in a different language, let's see. They can move to a different country and communicate over that system back to home, and so on. So the importance of standards, it cannot be understated. Operational mobility. I just want to touch on this point. We've talked about interoperability until now, and we had a long discussion in Broadway of really what does interoperability mean in the context of the responder, of the practitioner. Actually, it means he can be operationally mobile anywhere. Okay, so we don't actually use the word interoperable in Broadway as much, because we kind of assume, well, it should be interoperable. These responders should need that operational mobility capability to operate wherever they are around Europe and whenever they need to. So it's pretty clear. So building on this and looking back to the DRS03 topic, you can see in the layer diagrams that there's one. I'm just going to scroll back a few slides here, because there's one key element I'd like to stress a point on, which I didn't, and that's this aligned operations bubble box on the left here. This one, I will point with the mouse, not my finger. And in the majority of these projects, we don't see this addressed as much. So actually, we've got all the standardization activity going on in all the different layers, but actually it's about the responders. How are they going to use it? How are their operations going to benefit from it? And what is that capability improvement? So that's, I would say, my view, certainly our view of the need for the standards, and certainly the demonstration, the trials, the pre-standards activity that's needed as we go forward to this procurement and capability building within the responder community, within the disaster resilience community. So that's it from me. Or Marie-Christine, if you'd like to add anything, Marie-Christine, I think we're finished here.
No, but I think the topic, even if I think Jérôme mentioned that was a bit complicated, but it's really topical because we have just been faced with a massive crisis, and it has demonstrated the need really to better manage and coordinate resources. If you just think of in some country where we had all the problem with the mask, and we don't know about how to manage the stocks of masks, where they were, and who had access to them, and how old they were. I mean, we are just in the middle of this discussion now. So yes, it's a very topical topic.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your talk. There are a certain number of questions that have been asked. I will give the floor to Armand, who will pass the questions. And I've opened the mic of Philippe Queboviller, who is among us. And thank you again, Philippe, for being present to all these webinars and being present to joyfully answer our question. Thank you again for that. And I will leave. Thank you. I leave the floor to Armand.
Okay, thank you. So we have some questions. So I'll start with the questions to Philip. One question is from Maite. Maite is asking, what do you understand as the pre-standardization? Should that involve technological development, interoperability? Up to which point should the standardization be explored? The second question you can answer to the two questions is coming if it's Janet asking a question about the ethics. So with regards to this topic, what you recommend to involve as such a researcher? Because it's interesting that social and cultural interoperability to be considered as an important factor.
Yeah, about pre-standardization, we have very frequently this kind of question, and it, in a way, slightly worries me because it is usually well understood for people who are applying to proposals. So I think maybe we should make a little effort in some didactic explanation about pre and co-normative research. I think it has to be very clearly understood that pre-standardization research is not standardization, obviously. It is everything which is upstream to leading to standardization. In other way, it's research on tools, technologies, methods, whatever is actually as a name to go for any kind of standard component. In saying that, it means that when we speak about pre-standardization, in fact, we speak very often about pre-normative research. I don't know why we say pre-normative, but okay, so pre-standardization research is really something which is research and development. That is very often things which does not yet exist or are not well formulated, which requires really some development with different actors. When we speak about co-normative research, it means that a tool, a method, or whatever exists, but it's not sufficiently consolidated, has not been sufficiently validated. And in this case, it's more about demonstration, validation, while intercomparisons between different institutes and so on. So just to clarify that, because it will, I would like to stress this because it's something that we will try to continue even in Horizon Europe. And this distinction is for us very, very important, this pre-standardization, pre-normative research, and co-normative research. Having said that, it means that indeed we are here speaking about, when we speak about pre-standardization, it should not be something that exists and is being simply checked. It's really something which is requiring research. About ethics, well, I would like to stress again that we have put this topic under which is actually, I think, straightforward. I would like to have some questions specifically on the topic itself, because proposals have to justify any kind of actors that will be dealing with first aid vehicle deployment, training, maintenance, and so on. If SSH is needed in that, it has to be justified. I will not tell the proposers to, I will not give actually a kind of cooking recipe, because we are, as commission official, we are not the experts. So you are the experts, but proposals which will come up with proposals will tell us what to do. So if social components are needed, cultural components are needed, it has to be well justified. You will need to convince evaluators, not the commission, in the first row.
Okay, thank you, Philippe. So there is a question. So, can you elaborate on the following terms: the cross-sector and the cross-hierarchy? Who should be involved in the project with regard to this term?
Cross-sector,
the cross-hierarchy.
Yeah. Well, the tools and technologies that are being considered here, well, as first aid vehicle deployment, are not only, for example, related to medical sectors. It can be civil protection. It can be different type of sectors. What we mean by sectors? Firefighters, or maybe even police forces, emergency unit, and so on. So by sector, we mean this. Different type of first responder sectors. Speaking about cross hierarchy, well, we have noticed that very often there is a chain, I would say, of command from national to regional. It has to correspond to the usability of the future standardized equipment, tools, methods, whatever, at different levels. It's what we need by hierarchy. It is different, I would say. I don't want to say administrative hierarchy, but it's really from national, regional to local. So we wish that the full range of applicability is being demonstrated. Because if we standardize something at national level, which is of no use at local level, where it has to be used, then we are failing. So we need to demonstrate that it is covering all the different decision-making levels. Is it okay, or is it confused?
For me, it's okay. So I can, yes, I can. If someone is going to ask me this question, I can answer clearly. I don't know if it's not clear for someone. You can ask further questions. Yes, I have a question to David. Did you look to using MBSE? I think MBSE is model-based system engineering for physical and protocol interoperability. And did you reach out to INCO's UK chapter at ITSI?
Yeah, well, within the Broadway program, this is up to our suppliers to offer the approach. And I would say in most cases, they're looking at it from a business perspective with the official standards, with ETSI involved. Yeah, it's all there, I would be honest. Not from PSC side, not from the buyer's side, but certainly from the supply side, yeah.
Okay, so I received another question to you. It was during the presentation. So I think it was because I didn't know. I didn't know which it was related to which project. It's about the impact. You were talking about. That the outcome of the project research were knowledge and awareness. So how did you measure the impact? Because EC generally wants to see numbers in the impact section. So I believe that it was under the EPISEC. Maybe it was under the related to the EPISEC project.
Okay, the impact from EPISEC. Well, it's, you know, on the ground, it was still at the demonstrations time, you know, it's still early research. So, you know, it needs more steps to actually take the technology forward thereafter. We certainly continued that through to the driver program and actually taking a lot of those concepts into the pre-standardization with the SEN workshop agreements. With regard to the companies involved that delivered the technology within the project, as far as I understand it, they've taken forward commercially. So, yeah, I think the impact was reasonably good. I can't measure it, but I'm pretty convinced there was some good impact from it. Yeah. And of course, it's, you know, the concepts have fed forward as well towards our Broadway program, which hopefully will be a live system in a number of years, pan-European. So, yeah.
So we have so other question. I think there are some related to remote coordination. So how exactly do you mean remote centralized coordination means? Do you mean standards for hardware like command and control systems that are portable or remote and can be used directly on the field? The question is more so it's so what I understand from the question about does it relate to technology or more to or higher level related to the communication, the semantic communication between many sectors? I think the question could be for to Philip.
No, I will not comment on any technical issue. I'm not the expert for that. Again, it has to be well explained. I will not elaborate on that because I'm simply not competent in this sector. So if there is, if David or maybe Anne-Marie could say something, fine. But I will, and I'm not supposed to actually interpret anything on the topic. So I'm sorry, I'm surrounding here.
I think the thing is, it's a question. So it's saying, so are we going to consider the technical standard or the standard between the operations, how to communicate, how firefighters are going to communicate with LEAs, how we are going to communicate between about the operations, the SOAPs. So the question. Personally, what I understood that the project, so we need to do both. In fact, we need to start from the higher level, and then we needed to enable the communications. Okay.
Yeah, it's what the topic says. Yeah, it's what the topic says. Actually, I will. It would be interesting to know more what are the issue of reading the topics, because if there is something specific to be responded, I will do it, but do it by mail, because here it's a little bit difficult to understand what is badly understood, because all what you say is under the topic, so I don't really understand what you mean.
Yes,
What is
you know,
the
this is a question. Maybe the person who asked the question can clarify it in another question.
Yeah.
Yes, so there is a question quite related. So you expect the applications should be built or standards and the protocols for the communication between various systems to be proposed. So yes, the question. So are we going to work on the protocol side, or we are going to go to make the to enable the interoperability between the applications? I think also it's both.
It's both, yeah, and I have to stress that the topic has been put on paper owing to expressed needs by experts, and we have written that in maybe in a too generic way, but it's meant to respond to needs expressed by experts. So now the experts have to make their work and to explain clearly what they wish to develop, and to convince the evaluators. At commission level, we are not ourselves understanding everything, otherwise we'll do the job ourselves. We are actually enabling research to be undertaken, responding to needs that have been discussed in, for example, open forum, or sometimes by member states experts. So I will not tell you and I will not interpret this call for you. I will tell you simply, please convince us and put something that is indeed corresponded to real needs, concrete needs, how you want to develop the research, how you want to deal with the standardization component, and justify your research approach and the different type of sectors, partners, and so on involved. I cannot tell you more than that, actually.
Yes, so we have a question. One question is thinking, so should we target the project focus on a specific issue of the deployment of vehicles and on the logistic, or we can, the project could be broader, we can do so all the issues that are reported in the subtopic title can be considered. So the question is that should the question will be related to the vehicles and logistics, or to any issue concerning the communication?
No, well, it is speaking about first aids vehicle deployment, which is the first entry, and so the coordination means are related to that. So I think it's not covering everything related to communication needs. Otherwise, we will be flushed by different type of proposals. I'm sorry, because I don't have actually the full text in front of me. Because of some connection problem with my office, so it's difficult to read that again. So I would ask you to forward me the question by mail, and I will look at that. Yeah, because it's a little bit difficult. I was not expecting actually technical questions. You know, it was more about I'm not supposed to respond to them. You know.
Yes. So I have another technical question is concerning the artificial intelligence. So is technology or mechanism involved in artificial intelligence considered as part of tools or standards dealing with the DRS03?
Artificial intelligence is a tool, so it is not excluded, but it's not so yes, I would of course. Again, if it's justified, you know, it's yeah.
Okay, so I had another question. It's is the involvement of standardization agencies obligatory?
No, because we are speaking here about research. So they can, well, it's logical that there are links with technical committees of Sentinelex. This is clear, but we are not directly here working with standardization bodies. So they can be involved, of course, but it's not mandatory.
Yeah, okay, yes, thank you. So the question we have just received is about maintenance. So maintenance is dealing with the maintenance of standards and SOAPs, or about first aid tools and vehicles?
Sorry?
The maintenance, is it dealing with the maintenance of standards and the SOAPs, or we are speaking about the maintenance for the on the vehicles and the first aid tools?
We are not speaking about maintenance of standards. We are speaking about the tools. Well, well, is it not clear in the text? Well, I will.
This is the question. You know, I'm asking the.
We are not supposed to deal with maintenance of standards. Actually, we are speaking about here of the tools and the different logistics and so on. It has to be done. It is in support of responders' actions. So, well, I'm surprised by these questions. But okay, go on, please.
Okay, so I don't have. I think I asked all the questions. I'm looking at this. I asked all the questions. So what we can, because we don't have any more any other question, because we have time. Maybe I don't know, Christine, if you can enable everybody to ask questions. We can enable the microphones for everybody. What do you think? So otherwise, I don't have any more questions. I haven't received them. Let me see. Yes. So I asked all the questions I received. Yes. Giro?
Yeah. No particular question. Just yes. The title of the subtopic is quite confusing, because it mentions vehicles, and vehicles are not mentioned after that. But I think there was already a question about that. Can you just clarify what in the genesis of the topics led to that situation, so that we can really understand with the right focus on the topic, which has been already explained?
Let me see, because I would prefer that you send frankly your questions on the topic via the channel, you know, the ERA channel, because I was not actually. I thought that we will speak more about the process related to standardization and so on than really the technical things. So I was not prepared to respond to this. So I need a little bit more time to respond.
Okay.
So please pass via the formal channel, and I will check again, because typically this is a topic which has been requested by I think it was by some member states in the last PC. So we did not put ourselves our technical knowledge. So I need to go back to the source a little bit if it's unclear, if it's indeed proven to be unclear.
Okay. Okay, sure, no problem. And if any of the attendants do not know how to do that, we can help them, of course. Thank you very much. That's it for me, and I will thank everyone very much for attending. Thank to the speakers, David and Marie-Christine. Thank you, Armand, for all the organization, and SEREN4 teams. Thank you very much also to the PulseSafe and Christine and Catherine on the PTN side, who spent a lot of time on the logistics about this. And thank you a lot, Philippe, for attending all these webinars. I hope this has clarified, it has enlightened the questions you're asking yourself, and I hope it has been helpful to all the people who wish to propose to send proposals, and wish you best proposals for the future and for this summer. Thank you very much, and that's it. If you don't have anything to add, we would call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.